Good morning, my name's Dick Stein and I'm president of the Galesburg Railroad Museum. It's a beautiful sunny day and we already have some guests to visit our museum today.
Hi!
A little history about the Galesburg Railroad Museum. The first car I'm gonna take these people on a tour is an old Pullman parlor car. December 7th, 1854 is when the first train pulled into Galesburg, and this was basically the birth of the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad, which was in existence from 1854 to 1970. 1970 mergers took place, and now the former CB&Q is part of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway Company. But Galesburg has always been a very important part of our railroad infrastructure, not only because of its location in the Midwest, but we branch out in 7 different directions out of Galesburg. So our road crews based in Galesburg fan out in 7 different directions, which is very important to the whole nationwide railroad industry. And this was built in 1921 by the Pullman Company. And at that time, Mr. Pullman had over 10,000 passenger cars in his fleet. This was made for first-class accommodations for people making long-distance rail travel. Mr. Pullman wanted to make the experience as comfortable as possible, so he came up with the idea of the parlor car. Okay, we're going to get right in the parlor car here. Now, this cutaway picture shows the 12 different compartments that were in this car. They had a dining area, a sleeping area, their own lounge, restroom facilities. So, like I said, Mr. Pullman wanted to make long-distance passenger travel as comfortable as possible. So, this one had the bunk bed configuration, and then they had their dining area. The second car. It's a post office on wheels, and this was known as the RPO car. Oh, we're going to get some loud noise. That's Galesburg for you. He'll blow his whistle 2 more times. One more long blast. This car is in 2 sections, and we're in the back section, which was used as the post office for railway post office, RPO. So when freight railroads first came about through an act of Congress, they made the railroads the mail carrier for the United States. Now, these cars weren't completely phased out till 1977.
Okay, but now 10 minutes later, we have another train on the track, and here's an Amtrak Midwest.
So just in the last 10 minutes, we've had an outbound freight train leave, and now one of our Amtraks come in. How much freight traffic and train traffic is there in Galesburg? We average over 100 freight trains a day. The rear end of the car, the post office car, took care of delivering the mail across the United States. Now the front half of this car took care of all the agricultural communities and the farmers through our region, and it was known as the Railway Express Agency. Farmers, if they had any fruits, vegetables, eggs, milk from their dairy cows, anything they needed to get to market, they would take it to the train station and they load it up on the Railway Express Agency car. Now we're standing in front of the CB&Q 3016 locomotive. This locomotive was built in 1930 by the Baldwin Steam Engine Works in Pennsylvania. So the CB&Q 3006 operated from 1930 to 1962, and during those 32 years it logged 2.3 million miles in freight and passenger service. This engine hit speeds pulling a passenger train of about 105 miles an hour.
Oh, right.
You don't have the whistle hooked up, so you have the bell. Now the engineer seat's a little hot because it's in the sun, but you can sit right over there. I'll sit in the hot seat.
Okay, you sit up there and I'm going to sit behind you.
Oh my God.
Isn't this awesome?
Oh geez, wow.
So this is the firebox in the CB&Q 3006, and this is where the fireman would shovel his coal to make the fire to heat up the water. And of course the steam engine, you heat up the water to produce steam, and then the steam would propel the locomotive. So the last car we're going to go in and view, every other railroad called this car a caboose. So back when the way cars ran on the rear end of trains, this is where the conductor and the rear brakeman rode. Now the conductor, he was in charge of all the cars in the train. So he had a lot of paperwork to do. He would sit at his desk and take care of his paperwork. And then when the train was in movement, that is when the conductor and rear brakeman would get up here in this balcony, and this was known as a cupola. So this was the observation deck for the conductor and rear brakeman when the train was going down the track. They'd look through the windows and they would look their train over as they were going down the track, especially around a curve, because you wanted to look the side of your train, make sure there was no smoke coming off the wheels, and you could look for defects.